Welcome back to the Mentally Fit Athlete. I'm your co-host, Dr. Jason Von Stietz, and I'm here with Lidia Garcia.
Hi,
And
everyone.
hey, we have a nice special little treat. We have a question from a coach, a question from actually Lydia's running coach. He asked, or she asked, someone asked, he asked about let's see. Well, I don't recall the exact words, but
So,
go ahead.
I've been working with a running coach for a long time now. I think we're coming up on 10 years of us working together. So he knows my experience as an athlete. He knows my experience in this capacity in work and therapy. And he had a question where he's asking for a friend, of course.
Sure. Sure.
He's asking about for another athlete, right? He does a really great job of taking care of not just our training plans and our physical bodies, but also how we might feel and what we might be going through mentally, emotionally. And he has an athlete who is experiencing some anxiety pre-workout. So sounds like they're getting in their head before they even start the workout. And he was looking for resources about how to help that athlete out of that space. So we had a little bit of a conversation about it and got some fun tips that might be helpful and maybe helpful to some people out there listening.
Before we started, can you talk again about that app? Was it Strava or Stava, whatever it is,
Yeah. So
and
we
just
were
what
talking about,
happens?
yeah. So there's a few contributors that can come into pre-workout anxiety. One of the things that we talked about was an app called Strava. Just before we started recording, we were talking about where some of those anxieties, pre-workout anxieties, might be coming from. And one thing that we sort of discussed was this app called Strava. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Strava is kind of a fitness tracking app. It's very popular with runners and cyclists to upload your data, the stuff that's coming from your fitness trackers, onto what's essentially a social media platform for athletic people. It's kind of fun because you can learn a lot about new routes, places that you haven't run before. You can give your friends kudos or thumbs up for their efforts. And it's designed to be kind of motivating for communities, which is really cool. And at the same time, it sometimes can be really stressful for users, depending on a personality type or depending on how someone is viewing it. So, in the case of someone being really anxious about a workout, it could be a place where if that data is public, they feel like they have to perform to a certain level in order to maintain their like status or identity in the sport. Yes, there's features where you can make your workouts private and nobody sees it, but then also you don't get the gratification of somebody
Sure.
giving you a thumbs up and saying like great job. So it's just one of those factors where as we've become more dependent on technology in a way, we've also sort of opened ourselves up in a vulnerable way also, things that people didn't have pre GPS watch.
Yeah, sounds good. So it sounds like it could be a very useful tool for you to track your progress, track your run times, and then also it's kind of putting you on blast in a way where
Yeah, kind
now
of.
the data is right there.
Yeah. And my coach was asking this question for an athlete who's already an adult. I don't know what stage as an adult they are. I don't know if they're, 18 or
Mhm.
if they're 55,
Sure.
but if someone had been doing the sport of running for across those different stages of life, it's kind of gradual and a little bit inevitable that our bodies begin to change. And so maybe the times that we're able to hit or the recovery that we're able to achieve also changes. So maybe, at 45, we're not going to be as fast as we were at 22 necessarily, right? I know that there are outliers and everything, but as a general rule, it's we're not just not going to be as fast at 45, right? So that person who's feeling pre-workout anxiety might be comparing their current times with previous times, or something that they might have hit
Sure.
10 years ago or even 5 years ago that they aren't achieving in the present moment. um, One of the things that I talked with my coach about was helping that person to stay mindful and grounded in this present moment, and gave some strategies for that. And that was one place that we started. Have
Yeah.
you ever dealt with athletes like that, or people who have been anxious about workouts, and then how have you helped them?
Sure, yeah. Well, I would be in a little bit of a different situation, or many of my athletes would be in a different situation. Most of the athletes that I've worked with haven't used some kind of device that tracks all of their different metrics and then shares it with their whole team, or whoever it's being shared with. But they're having plenty of athletes, plenty of baseball players. They can do great in their own personal workout. If they go to the batting cages on their own, they're performing great. And then once other people are looking, then all of a sudden, there's something going on with their swing. There's some kind of issue going on, and sometimes some might even have what we call the yips, where they have this intense experience with anxiety, and they have difficulty doing something really basic and fundamental, like throwing the ball from home plate to the pitcher. That doesn't sound like a big deal, and especially if you're a seasoned athlete who's done this for years, you can throw the ball from home plate to the pitcher. But there's something going on, something's causing anxiety that makes something really simple like that very difficult. And that can even happen in practice. And then, there's different ways to approach that. A book recommendation that I would give to anybody would be Heads Up Baseball. There's the original version from 1995. There's the newer version, Head Baseball 2.0. They're both good. They're a little bit different. I'd probably recommend both if you have to get one. I guess Heads Up Baseball 2.0, but they're both really good. So that would
Mhm.
have tons of tips. And the guy who wrote it, Ken Revisa, he talked about how you need to practice these mental skills during practice. And then when you practice them in practice, you get better at them. And then now you can do them in a game. So I would definitely recommend that. And there's also CBT. If I was working with somebody as their psychologist, I would do a lot of CBT, a lot of exposure therapy. But that's something that I would need to do with them on a one-to-one basis. So I can talk more about that either a little bit later today or at another recording. But what would you suggest to somebody?
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds too like in the scenario that you're describing, where an athlete is kind of an individual and able to
Mhm.
practice on their own, they're totally good. But then as soon as they have a little bit of an audience, things sort of start to fall apart. And in the places where we look at running as more of an individual sport, sometimes people train together, and it's awesome when they have teams and people to work with. But if they're working themselves up about what others are going to think, then they might be getting into that place of like, once they have an audience, once their teammates are around, they're all
Mhm.
going to see me and they're all going to see
Right.
that, and then fill in the blank, right? There's some sort of belief that's sitting there that makes them feel disconnected from really like the purpose or the why or the fun of the experience. So, a book that I would recommend, I have with me here, it's called
Nice.
The Brave Athlete, Calm
Yeah.
the Fuck Down, and Rise to the Occasion.
Hmm.
And this was written based on research by a sports psychologist at UC San Diego named Dr. Simon Marshall. He and his wife, Leslie Patterson, who is a professional triathlete, wrote this book, and it provides a lot of psychoeducation about the brain and the brain's processes and what happens in fight and flight and all those kinds of things. And then a lot of tips for countering some of the negative thoughts and ideas that we might have in our heads and really making things much more grounded and realistic as we go through sport. So it's a pretty good resource. It's written where it's understandable, but it is more of like a read where you want to see this and you want to process it and you
Yeah.
want to kind of like sit with it. It's not going to be a quick fix. So just like anything that we've done as athletes, it's not, it's nothing is like instant. Everything takes practice and patience. So there's that. And then I also recommend for athletes to keep a journal so they can actually see their own progress and like validate themselves as they're doing it. Like, what did it feel like to do this workout? Maybe that workout I showed up to, I was really scared and I procrastinated the whole day. And like, I waited to the very, very last minute to do that. And every time I tried to leave the door, I would distract myself with, oh, I got to wash these dishes. Oh, I should vacuum the rugs before I leave. Like, sometimes that happens when we're just nervous or anxious about doing something. We'll find any task, anything to get in the way of taking us out of that. And so if you're keeping a journal, you can almost write that. I mean, you can write that down where
Yeah.
you're like, hey, today it took me an extra hour and a half to get
Mm.
out the door to go do this workout. And I was really scared and nervous to do it. And sure enough, my legs felt like lead, felt like someone was sitting on my chest, felt like my lungs were just burning. It was
Yeah.
so hard, but I finished it. And then the next time you do it, it's like, okay, it didn't take me as long to get out because I knew what to expect. The band aid was
Right.
ripped off, and I was able to make my workout time at the time that I did. And, this time my legs didn't hurt quite as much. This time I found a little bit of more bounce in my step. This
Mhm.
time I felt really strong doing. So you can see if they're keeping a journal and writing down not just how far, how long, how fast, all that, but also what was going on and how did you feel, then it helps to relieve a lot of that anxiety for future workouts and kind of gives you something to go read back in and be like, oh, actually, it is possible to progress. I am doing better today than I did a month ago, than I did, you know, 3 months ago, all of that.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, that's
those are some of my
great.
recommendations.
Yeah. Yeah, that it's so easy when you're working hard, when you're, you know, yeah, grinding day after day. It's very easy to lose sight of what specific workouts made you feel that way, how you felt over the course of time and how things shifted and how your approach changed. So it's very easy to just forget what works for you or just never know it works for you. So keeping a journal can really help with that. You can look back and see how you've improved over time. And then also just writing it down, just thinking it through, that by itself can help learning. And learning is how you're going to become a better athlete. You need
Mhm.
to learn what works, what didn't work, and what you can do better next time. And journaling is a great way to do that.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe if an athlete is experiencing workout anxiety, there's times when it can even go even deeper than
Mm,
the sport or deeper than the workout.
sure.
And they might find in working with a sports psychologist or working with a therapist that they're ascribing a lot of meaning to
Sure.
what the activity is or their identity inside of that activity and tying back a lot of self-worth to it.
Right.
And sometimes that can get really, really deep. But if we want, you know, if we're, even if you're a professional athlete, right, you don't want to tie your entire sense of identity and worth back to the sport that you play, that you perform. And if we think about, play, this is something that we're doing because we love it and something that we do because we enjoy it. And you
Mm,
want to have that joy inside of the thing. So, going to practice is always a time when you're allowed to make mistakes. and where you should make mistakes, because to your point, like that's how we learn. Keeping a journal to look at what that growth is and how that learning occurs is powerful in reminding us that we are capable of more than we give ourselves credit to sometimes.
Right.
So I would also recommend, if an athlete's really struggling with it, to come to therapy and to
Right.
sort of like introspect, to sort of take a look at, where is this really coming from? Why do I feel this way? What
Sure.
was the
Yeah.
mean thing that my brother said to me 25 years ago
I
that,
know. Yeah.
whatever,
Hmm.
or why am I thinking this way, that my self-worth might be tied up in the performance of this fun project, So
Right.
I would encourage a person to come dissect that and free themselves of it. At the end of the day, that sounds so woo-woo, but it really is freeing to
Yeah.
to go in and find what that answer is so that you can enjoy the things that you're experiencing.
Right. Absolutely. And in Ken Reviza's Heads Up Baseball 2.0, he talks about the importance of knowing your why and knowing your mission and even writing out your mission. And he wasn't a therapist, but he does in the book. He did talk about how oftentimes athletes will have hidden missions where they're not even aware of it, and they think their mission is to perform their best or what it might be. But then deep down, they have this hidden mission where really maybe they're trying to prove somebody wrong. Maybe they're even trying to prove that they're not capable of doing it and they're sabotaging themselves. But there could be all kinds of hidden missions. But it is important to be aware of that. And a lot of times we could have the perfect game plan, the perfect, stated mission or stated why. But then for some reason, we're just not following the plan. And why is that? Probably because some kind of hidden mission. And journaling can really help with that. And going to therapy can really help with that.
I really like that term, hidden mission. I
Yeah.
really, really like that, because I do often see clients who end up having a hidden mission, or kids who are pushed into sport that they're not really fond of, but the parents have a hidden mission. It's their own. The parent wants the kid to fulfill this thing for their hidden mission. It can get really deep, you know bringing back to that individual, like, well, how is it that you want to experience this thing?
Hmm.
And if there's a hidden mission, well, what's your real mission?
Sure.
Can we heal up the hidden mission so that we can get you to a place where you find fulfillment and enjoyment in
Yeah.
anything that you would rather be doing? Does
Right.
that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got to resolve that hidden mission that yeah, and so I've heard also people say the inner critic or the inner saboteur. So there can be lots of terms for it, but either way, we know what we should be doing, but for some reason we're just not doing it, and it's because of the hidden mission or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah. So to seal up kind of today's mission of the podcast,
Mhm.
I think our number one recommendations for anyone who might be experiencing some performance or workout anxiety is to really track that and, like, write it down, notice, sit with it, and notice if it's bringing you enough distress that you need extra support. There's no shame in that, right? And getting the help that you need. We're available. We're here. We got you.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're in the state of California, we can work with you via telehealth, wherever you are. And then if you're in the Pasadena area, Lydia is around. I mainly stick to telehealth, but yeah, anywhere in California, and we can
Yep.
work with you. Yeah. So, Lydia,
It is.
where can listeners find you?
Well, listeners can find me online at lydiagarcia.net or on
Mhm.
Instagram at liddy.g.
Awesome. My website is drjasonvonsteets.com, and you can find me on Instagram at CVT Sports Psych. Then I'm trying out this blue sky thing, so you can look for me there too at CVT Sports Psych. All right. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna pause.
Okay, sorry about
Whoa.
that. Yeah, it just my internet just went out for no apparent reason, and then I rebooted it, and now it's working. So
Okay. What should we do? Should we start over? I don't
I
know where
th-
I cut out. I was
it
like
cut.
talking and then you weren't there and I was like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the last thing that I heard is you just started talking about Strava.
Okay.
So we can just start if you're up for it. We can just start over where you're just telling us what that means, and I'll edit all this
Okay.
stuff out.
All right. So